Good morning, Vanakkam. Welcome friends, students, film goers, the online community to the U.S. Consulate General here in Chennai for a panel discussion and an award ceremony for the essay contest on the portrayal of gender in media and entertainment. I want to begin by thanking our partner, the New Indian Express, especially its editor, G.S. Vasu, its education editor, Daniel Thimaya. Daniel's here today. And resident editor, Indranil Das. Thank you for your support. I also want to thank our panelists, Mr. Sundar Srinivasan and Ms. Sindhuja Parthasarathi. Thank you for joining us. And also students, teachers, and family members, cheering squads. I want to welcome you to the U.S. Consulate and invite you, as well as our online audience, to participate in this discussion by raising your hand if you're here in the audience, to share your comments or questions, and if you're online, submit comments online through our Facebook live stream. As the world's oldest and largest democracies, the United States and India stand for the fundamental principles that all people are free and equal in dignity and in rights, and that human rights are universal and indivisible. The United States and India not only share these democratic values, but we also share our love for media and entertainment. We possess two of the world's largest film and TV industries. Now, media can entertain, it can educate, it can inspire. It can also shape our perception of ourselves and our roles in society. On-screen images, as well as narratives, can either strengthen or weaken our commitment to uphold the fundamental principles that all people are free and equal in dignity. The week of August 6th, the U.S. Consulate hosted right here in the auditorium a very similar discussion on the portrayal of women in the media and entertainment. We had a visiting expert from the U.S., Ms. Crystal Williams-Chancellor, film star, Ms. Gautami, film critic, Mr. Bharadwaj, and Women in Cinema Collective founder, Ms. Beena Paul from Kerala. We had a great exchange of views about the misrepresentation of gender on screen and the underrepresentation of women, minorities, and the LGBTI community in roles off screen, like as directors, writers, camera persons. We all agreed that the conversation had just begun and needed to be taken forward. So the U.S. Consulate General then partnered with the New Indian Express to launch an essay contest, inviting all of you, students, the leaders of the future, to share your views on the portrayal of gender in the media. And what did we find? An overwhelming response. 366 college students submitted essays, and one high school student also got his essay in. Among the 367 were 2 Afghan exchange students studying right here in Chennai at ACJ. The vast majority of you were critical of the depictions of women, men, and the LGBTI community and demanded change. Aisha from Karnataka's RLS College of BCA wrote about how extreme gender stereotypes are harmful and do not allow people to fully express themselves or their emotions. And Shira from Bengaluru's Christ Deemed to Be University said, the images being portrayed put men and women in boxes and urged readers to raise the coming generation to be comfortable, confident, and certain of who they are and who they want to be. Another more outspoken essayist, and if you're in the room, please let us know, Ruth John from PSG College of Art said, we don't need images of women as weak and helpless. They need to be portrayed just as they are, strong, with a heart of gold, and extremely badass. Here to discuss the portrayal of gender in the media and entertainment is entertainment editor from the New Indian Express, Mr. Sundar Srinivasan. Sudhir is a film critic with a focus on South Indian cinema and a former columnist for the Hindu and the Times of India. He launched the Cinema Express with the New Indian Express. And Mr. Sundar, may I ask you as a film critic, if you could please share your perception of how the film industry in South India portrays genders.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and to address this gathering. And I incidentally went through some of your essays. And I'm quite pleased that many of you have had some very smart and useful things to say about the importance of films and how it's crucial that they show good gender portrayal. In fact, I rather hope that some of you go on to make some films yourselves. That way, at least, my Fridays may not be so bad. I won't have to repeatedly point out that love doesn't mean chasing flying dupattas or peeking through windows. That way, at least, I don't have to keep pointing out that a female character has been fridged yet again. Fridging, of course, for those of you unfamiliar with the idea, is the concept of a female character getting killed off only so a man can do something useful in retaliation. If you've seen a Gautam Menon film, you know what I mean. Other issues some of us have pointed out over and over again include objectification of women, or showing only a certain type of women as being desirable. There was a meme that did the rounds on Twitter recently that showed the type of women, the type of woman our cinema likes to champion as being ideal. She's very fair, naturally. The hero's mother usually says something along the lines of, "Aha, sevappa azhaga irukka." We never really ask why the prefix for that. This woman is so cute that she is almost naive. I saw a film. I hope none of you have had the unfortunate experience of having watched it. It featured Vishal and Kajal Agarwal, and she played a character who didn't know how to cross the road. She's otherwise okay. She has no ostensible mental issues. She's okay, but she doesn't know how to cross the road, which is supposed to be very cute. She's so adorably childish, apparently. In truth, tell me, would you ever fall in love with somebody who cannot cross the road? Moving on, of course, the ideal cinema woman is usually single. She is chaste, and waiting, it seems, for our hero to come and make the first move. And his first move in these films is usually to open his mouth in amazement at her beauty, and likely walk behind her as long as it's necessary before she can respond. But some of us critics are optimistic creatures. We believe that the more we speak about these things, the more we write about these things, awareness spreads, and somehow we believe we are changing cinema brick by brick, and I'm pretty sure all of you who encourage that sort of writing, who encourage that sort of conversation about films, are doing your bit too, and it's important that you do. Maybe the truth is people don't read anymore. Maybe they just want to watch some person on YouTube talk again and again about how the second half is slightly slower than the first half. But I would have trouble waking up if I felt our writing wasn't making a change. And truth be told, I think we are noticing some signs of change in our cinema, in Tamil cinema especially. The more we talk, the louder we talk, the faster this change occurs. A few years earlier, if one of you had told the other that we would have a lady superstar, you would have been laughed at. Whoever heard of a star not being a man? Of course, I'm just keeping aside my reservation of stardom here. But I'm very happy that today we have women like Nayanthara, Anushka. These are all women who are telling upcoming scriptwriters that it's okay to write stories featuring a woman at the center of the story. And at this point of time, I want to tell you, if some of you, I can see some of you are very fine writers judging by your essays. And if some of you want to go ahead and, will be writing stories for a living in the future, ask yourself, don't ever assume that the protagonist needs to be a man, or that he must be straight, or that he must be masculine as defined by pop culture. Question yourself about these basic presumptions. Why can't your hero be a woman? Ask yourself this right at the beginning of your story's conception. Sometimes when we critics make an issue out of, say, a dark woman being called funny names in a film, filmmakers sometimes ask us to develop a sense of humor. But really, is that the sort of society we want to help create? And make no mistake, films do shape societies in a sense. And of course, it's the other way around as well. In response to our writing, they often wonder if their freedom to write is being hindered. They ask if they can never be allowed to portray a negative idea in a film. Well, they do. They have all the freedom to make the films they want to, show the ideas they want to, show the stereotypes they want to. All I'm saying is don't show it as a desirable trait. If there's a male character who chases women around in the name of love, don't show him to be an ideal person. Don't romanticize that gesture because he's not. Don't legitimize that pursuit because it's not. It's this romanticization that we have a problem with when you get a composer making very grand music as the hero starts to do it, making very poetic music as he starts to chase her. And of course it works the other way around as well. If a woman believes that men should be macho and if it's and a man should be able to fight 10 people at once, and that's what makes him a man, don't show her to be a particularly smart woman, because she's not. And also because I would have trouble beating up 10 people at once. But change is happening. New heroines are being written about. Rajnikant's wife in Kala is a different type of hero. The film tells us that homemakers can be heroes too. The same goes for Jyotika's character in yesterday's release, Chekka Chundavanam. I'm not sure how many people had the opportunity of catching this film. Those women can also be as strong as, say, the protagonist in a film like Aruvi, a woman who exposes the hypocrisy of a society. And kudos to that film for good portrayal of a transgender as well. I also realized that the heroine in even a romantic film like Pyar Prema Kadal, which says that a girl who drinks doesn't necessarily need to be evil or promiscuous, and this is an idea we've propagated in our films again and again. She tells society that consensual relationships between two adults are the business of nobody else, regardless of whether it's inside or outside of marriage. Change is happening, and I truly believe it is. The more we talk about it, the more change occurs. And it pleases me that someone like Aishwarya Rajesh, a girl who looks like one of you, has featured prominently in the releases of the past weeks. And I like to think that it's partly because we have forever been encouraging filmmakers to cast people who look like us, who sound like us, who walk and talk like us. We want to see our men falling in love with all sorts of beauty, and there's beauty in everything if you care to look. Not just in those with fair skin, airbrushed hair, and perfect teeth. There's beauty in speech, there's beauty in a person's language, there's beauty in a person's body language, in their lisp, there's beauty in a smile, there's beauty in darkness. I just want to end this with the wish that our films and their portrayal of people be as wide and varied as the beauty we see around us. Thank you.
Thank you. And our second panelist this morning is Ms. Sindhuja, an independent award-winning photojournalist who has been journeying across India creating visual narratives of human rights violations in order to influence people and organizations for change. She works mainly on gender equity, indigenous human rights issues, and environment sustainability. Sindhuja, can you please tell us about how you have used the camera to raise awareness among the general population about gender sensitivities?
Sure, thank you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. And thank you, Sudhir, speaking about humor especially. I've been extremely irritated with fat shaming, any appearance shaming in the garb of humor. It's extremely irritating. Now, when I was asked to talk and I went back to reflect on my 10-year journey as a photojournalist, I was reminded of one of the first few documentaries I did in Kuvagam, a small village in Tamil Nadu which hosts this transgender festival. Some of you are probably aware of it. So year on year, the transgender community gets together, they perform a symbolic wedding with Lord Aravan, the temple deity, and get widowed the very next. Now back then, 10 years back, I was possibly the only woman photographer there. And there were close to 30,000 people, trans women, trans men, and some men who had come to solicit. And the policemen were really kind. They let a constable shadow me. And initially I was very happy that there is somebody to support. But it didn't turn out really well because this constable, who was also a photography enthusiast, kept giving me advices. He said, ma'am, you should sit here, you should stand here, you should take from this angle. No, you should not take candid shots. And then he would make people pose in a certain way. And it was really tough. But I think what stayed with me is his constant questioning. Why are you here alone? Why are you here in this place without your husband? And he was even more shocked to know that I was unmarried at the age of 30. And he recommended that I should start looking for people rather than be here in Kuaga, right? And that kind of constant reminder of the fact that you're a woman has been there for me throughout my journey. I've been upteen times, been acutely aware of my gender, and I think that influences a lot of my access to people, spaces, and stories. Now, what was more irritating and what continues to be irritating is not even the hostile sexism, but this benevolent sort of attitude, the patronizing, oh poor girl, how will you manage? And I think that becomes really difficult to handle. But on the other side, I think the environment, the ecosystem has become far more enabling than it was 10 years back. And that reflects in the data. If you look at print media today, we have almost, the number of women in print media is doubled over the last decade. But still it's 4:1. And we still have more women working on culture, arts, entertainment, lifestyle, fashion, correct me if I'm wrong, rather than crime or politics, which is more reserved for the men. Right? And if there are women who are doing crime, politics, etc., they are far more vulnerable to threats, physical violence, sexual violence, cyber trolling, all of that. I met this lady, Tongam Raina, editor of Arunachal Times. She has been reporting on mining mafia, on corruption in government, on insurgency groups in Arunachal Pradesh. And she's constantly had physical threats. She was shot right in her stomach outside her office. And she continues to push the envelope. And I've had my share of experiences too. I've been groped, I've had my pants pulled down when I was shooting Puram in Thrissur. My eyes were blinded almost in a protest in Delhi. And more recently, when I was doing this investigative story in Haryana on female infanticide, and I was visiting this village where a woman had 24 children, and I was there to document her story. The entire village, 250 or more, surrounded me, abused me. Thankfully in Haryana, so I didn't understand much of what they said, but I could see the anger. And a group of young men continued to follow me, and they said, we'll track you down, and we'll take care of you. I got back to Delhi, I got back to Gurgaon where I was staying, and all night I stayed awake, and I kept wondering who would knock on my door when and what could happen. So this constant worry of safety and fear is there. And all women have faced it. Neha Dikshit, another popular female journalist, who did the story on child trafficking, she had her sex life with her husband was talked about online. She was continuously trolled for more than a year after she published the story. And she mentions that we don't talk enough about it because we are scared how our parents will react, and that's been true in my case too, especially in the beginning of my journey when my parents didn't know what I was doing till I got published and I saw some of the stories on the paper. I've been scared of reporting it, and most women don't report it as much. Right? But I think we've been, despite the fear, doing what it takes to get those stories. And this is not just now. If you look back the history, if you look back at 1965, there was Prabha Dutt, the first woman journalist who covered war. And she was at Hindustan Times, if I'm not wrong, back then. And they did allow her to go and report on the war. But she took a leave, she went there on her own, she covered the story, she started reporting from there. And initially, Hindustan Times wasn't ready to publish it, but they did. Right? So I think, on one hand, the participation of women has really increased, especially in the human rights space. Mm-hmm. And what's enabled is also the new age media, which has helped this. 10 years back, the newspapers wouldn't take stories from the LGBTQIA community that I was working with. We have enough of those stories now. And also, the other kind of stories that's becoming very popular, which I think is very pertinent, is the restorative narratives. Not just news item on how many women were raped, how many women had acid being thrown on them, but stories of women who've gone through the acid attack, who've gone through this suffering, but still exhibited fortitude and resilience in the face of trauma and adversity. And those are the stories that we need today. Mm-hmm. And the ecosystem is open for it, and the opportunities are plenty for women and also some men. So I would really invite all of you to be a part of the industry. That's what we aspire to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your bravery.
Thank you.
and your example.
Thank you.
Very powerful. Would you mind at this point sharing with us some of the photographs?
Sure. Should I look at those photographs and tell you stories around them? Or? Yes. So this is Sonali Mukherjee from Dhanbad. Should I just? So she was 16 when acid was thrown on her because she refused. She refused a love proposal. Is that what you call it? Yeah. And these three men threw acid on her when she was sleeping on the terrace of her house. She went through 26 reconstructive surgeries. Her entire face was burnt. Her eyesight was lost. She couldn't walk, talk, smile, blink an eyelid. And she had even filed a petition for mercy killing, which got rejected. But then she went on to participate in Kaun Banega Crorepati. She won 25 lakhs. She was able to fund some of her operations. And today she works as a welfare officer in Jharkhand. She's married and she has a beautiful baby girl. So this is one of the first photographs I shot just after she had gone through her 25th operation back in Delhi. So this is one of the restorative narratives I spoke about. Sure, she went through all of that, but I think today the resilience that she's been able to build, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are some of the photographs from immediately after the attack. So you can see how painful the journey must have been. So, and these are acid survivors that we hear enough about. Another story I did with burn survivors, and these are women who self-immolate. And for them it's tougher because at least in an acid attack there is the victim and there is the perpetrator. If you've thrown kerosene on yourself and burnt you down, you also have to live with this constant guilt and regret and questioning of people. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? And how can you leave your kid and do this? And these are women who've done this because they've gone beyond the threshold of managing domestic violence at the cost from their alcoholic husbands. This is a picture from Kashmir, and this was shot during one of the festivals there. So I've been working with women and the kind of aftermaths of conflict, and especially with half widows. For people who do not know, half widows are women whose husbands have disappeared but not been declared dead. Mm-hmm. So they're in this constant limbo. They do not know if the person's there or not there. And there was a recent fatwa which said they could go ahead and get remarried after 7 years. But if the first husband returns, they have to go back to the first one. The second marriage is null and void. So, which is obviously why nobody chooses this. Also because a lot of them might have children from their first marriages, and they're called half children. So, this is Swapna. Swapna is the first lady to clear 3 Tamil Nadu civil services exam. I had shot her back in 2008, if I'm not wrong, and she's now cleared the civil services and waiting for her posting. She was born a man in a conservative Muslim family, and she, at the age of 18, went to Bombay to get her sex reassignment surgery. And she knew that if she continues to stay in Bombay, she would be forced to get into sex work. So with her body operated on, with no money in hand, she traveled back in the train back to Madurai. She then did her MA Tamil Literature, got 75%, and then she went on to do her civil services. This was shot in the recent Pride Walk, the 10th Pride Walk in Chennai, just before, of course, the Section 377 verdict. I think it's been a wonderful journey in the last 10 years, starting from a point where people did not know the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation, to not knowing what it means to be a trans person, what it means to go through a transition, and the way they've been portrayed in cinema especially, to now. I think it's a very beautiful story, and I'm happy to have been a part of it. this was shot in the Rohingya refugee camp in Delhi. So while of course initially the first few hours that I was documenting, there were stories of pain and grief and escape and the struggle that they were going through. But the children were just having fun, dancing and really celebrating. So this was a shot from their hutments.
Thank you. Thank you for telling their story.
Thank you.
In a very powerful manner. Before I open it up to our student audience for some participation, I'm going to turn back to Mr. Sudhir to, if you could share a reflection on a comment made by Ms. Abhirami Ramesh. If she's here, please let us know. Hi, Abhirami. She has an exam this morning, so I'm sorry you're missing it. She's from DG Vaishnav College, and she pointed out that some progress, like you mentioned, is being made in the film industry. She referred to a new wave of female-centric movies, which is changing the tide as finally women are not just there as mere props in the story, but also there to save the day. She also concluded, however, saying that the audience reception was lukewarm for some of these films. So my question to you is, how do we in this audience as moviegoers, ticket buyers, influence the narratives and roles we see on the screen?
I'm not quite sure if it is true that films that have strong women aren't well received. I'm not very sure about the premise in the first place, because as I told you, if we write about films, we are optimists by nature. So I have to believe that if you make a good film, it will cut across sentence, it will cut across audiences. So I would think that regardless, I mean, if it is true that we respect our women, then that would, in my opinion, translate to appreciating, not just, I mean, see, there's a difference between making, you can make a bad film too with a strong woman character. Simply because you've showed a few strong women in a film doesn't necessarily mean that the film needs to be appreciated. Sure, you can appreciate that aspect of it, but unless the film itself is well made and it's well conceived and it's, you know, well performed, then we are just talking about one aspect of what constitutes a feature film. So I would believe that if you made a good film and you had good, strong women there, then I can't see why it will not be accepted. Maybe if she has an example or two, then it would help me better answer her.
We won't put you on the spot unless you want to be on it.
But truth be told, there's increasing dialogue about how we show women, how we show transgender people. I can see today more than ever. I mean, about 6-7 years back, you could get away with stalking, for example, in your films. You could get away with a woman who cannot cross the road. And if I remember, I think there was a film called Amarakavyam which ends with the man, and one of your photographs reminded me of that scene towards the end of this film. It's called Amarakavyam. It's supposed to be a love epic. And at the end of the film, the woman rebuffs him, and you know, he attacks her. He pours acid on her, and he commits suicide. And fascinatingly, how the film ends with showing them uniting in heaven. I'm like, really? So, but today I can assure you that I can see a lot of media outlets out there talking about these films, problematizing these films, and that's very crucial that we do our bit in problematizing them. And it's not just us who should be responsible for it. You watch a film, you see a weak woman, and if one of your friends believes that this film is incredible and it deserves to be watched, and they really love this film, I do think it's part of, I mean, it's also your responsibility to tell them, to educate them why it was a, not probably a bad film, but why you dislike the portrayal of women. I mean, if each of you sort of become more aware of the importance of gender portrayal, of the importance of avoiding only stereotypes in films, then I'm pretty sure we can make a change.
Thank you. Amrita from Madras Christian College, are you in the room? Well, she said she's calling for the proper portrayal of transgenders. saying that acceptance has to be spread starting with the things we see, and coming out to family doesn't always have to end up with running away from home or in suicide. And then she asked, maybe someday transgenders can have their own superheroes in films too. Can you tell us a bit about your perception of the depiction of transgender in the media today, and if perhaps the Supreme Court's decision on 377 may alter that depiction?
I don't think we have enough portrayal in the first place in cinema of either transgender or the sexual minorities, and if it is, it's generally humor. Or are you that kind of a guy? It's not funny to me. So first of all, I would say the portrayal isn't enough at all, and it's generally the negative characters. But in print media, I think it's different. In print media, we are talking about a lot of heroes, should I say heroes, or iconoclastic trans women and trans men who kind of surpass those challenges. So we have, for instance, Banu, who is the first engineering student, trans woman engineering student.
Mm-hmm.
We have Bharti, who's the first woman pastor. We have Swapna, who is the first trans woman to be IAS officer. And all, Yasha's, what's her name? Prithika Yashni, an interesting name. So she's the first superintendent of police. So, and I think these stories are there in the print.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope that these narratives then come on to television and the movies too. We recently had a play by this group called Katyakari, which showed the stories of these strong trans women on stage, and the actors were all trans women. I think it was the first time to happen in Chennai. So I think there is more and more dialogue and positive sign. But I would really want him to also talk about the movies because he's really the expert, the portrayal of.
You're absolutely right. Transgenders are typically milked for laughs in our films. I mean, even today, I don't want to propagate those terms here, but they're typically used every time somebody spots someone, and it's supposed to be fun. Even the person saying it doesn't ask themselves what about it was funny, except that some popular comedian has used that word and a bunch of people laugh, and it's supposed to be fun. Moving on, even a successful director like Shankar vilified the transgender person, and I mean, it's okay to show them being evil if you have sufficiently other diverse portrayal of the same group as well, which is the same problem we have about stalking, for example. It's okay to show stalking, I mean, don't romanticize it, but there are so many other forms of love as well. I mean, so how many other types of portrayal are you showing of these same people? You know, save for an Aruvi, which reasonably humanized that person. I think the confusion here, filmmakers immediately wonder if they are to treat these people with additional respect, only because they are of the transgender community. Only because she is a woman, am I supposed to treat her with additional reverence when I'm writing the script? Not necessarily. But just remember to be creative in your portrayal of them. If you've only shown them in a certain way, it's very lazy writing to continue to show them in the same light. What are you bringing in creatively? Even I think even in the old Prashant film, Apu, again another transgender was Prakash Raj played a transgender. And fascinatingly enough, I had a conversation with him after the release of I. When a lot of people, again going back to the increasing dialogue today, after I came out, a lot of us spoke about problematized the portrayal. And Prakash Raj admitted to being wrong in doing the Prashant film. He said that was at a time when there was very little dialogue, people didn't really think about these things. And he was among those very prominent voices against I, made his voice felt as somebody who had been part of vilifying that community. So yes, they don't need additional, any special reverence, so to speak, only because they belong to that gender. But till as such time you have shown them differently in various ways, a bit of respect wouldn't be amiss.
And I think a lot of this is unconscious. A lot of biases are unconscious, but that's not excuse really. If you're an artist, you have the responsibility to do your homework and portray them in the right way. I particularly remember even when I started out, I would call a lot of them he or she, and I wouldn't know how do you address them. And as long as you educate yourself more on what transgender means, what sexual minorities are, and you speak about it enough and not push it under the carpet, I think that should be good.
Thank you. And before we proceed to the award ceremony, I would like to invite Ms. Gopika Krishna from a Class 10 student at the Manathan Vidyasharam in Chennai to share her views. She's taken a few courses, and she's expressed her interest to speak today about her views on gender-related issues. So, Ms. Gopika, please join me.
A very happy morning to everyone. I'm Gopika Krishna and I'm currently a senior in high school. I'm a person with really strong desires and ambition, and I'm here because I believe that the future is in our hands. Firstly, I would like to thank the US Consulate Media Advisor for giving me this opportunity. I seriously believe that gender is a social construct, a notion that I'm a woman and that you're a man. People are constantly subjected to the media, and intentionally or not, the media subtly promotes certain beliefs and opinions. With so much exposure to the media, it's only a matter of time before people begin to adopt them as their own. This is especially true in the case of children and young adults who are still searching for a personal identity. So it's very important that the media promotes gender equality and inclusiveness. You may know that the UNESCO, in cooperation with the International Federation of Journalists, has framed some guidelines listing out gender-sensitive indicators for media, which would promote gender equality, inclusiveness, and women's empowerment in all forms of media. And I think that it's high time since the media adopt these guidelines. In movies, women are always the damsels in distress, and every single time a man has to rescue her. It's just recently that we have started seeing strong female characters in the cinema. But why did it have to take so long? Women make up half the population. How is that people have managed to ignore us? In addition, cinemas depict good women and bad women. A good woman is submissive, sensitive, and domesticated, and the women contrary to this description are seen as bad, rebellious, and masculine. Even men face problems in the media. They're forced to adhere to the media's portrayal of masculinity, which is in fact really toxic. I once remember seeing an ad and I was confused as to what they were selling, because the women in the ad were the center of the attention rather than the product. Objectification of the female body as a commodity has to stop. It is the responsibility of the media to bring all these gender issues into the mainstream of society through good films, scripts, articles, programs, etc. And now, as we near the end of my speech, I would like you all to think about this, that we all have the power to change the future by our own proactive gender empowerment initiatives. So I urge you all to take a step in the right direction and help me change the future and make the world a more inclusive place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gopika. We have a gift for you from the New Indian Express to award you for your courage to speak up on this matter. And thank you for volunteering. If you just come up and receive the gift. And on that note, I'd like to invite any of our other student participants, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to make at this juncture of our program. If not, we have received some questions from our online audience. I'm going to circle back to you, so if you don't have a question now, think of one. All right, Sundar, I'm going to ask your help in answering this question. Avaril Srivastan on Facebook asks, how can the United States help increase
enrollment of women in media and entertainment. And another person on YouTube asked something kind of similar. So is there an interplay here between US media and Indian media? Do you see movements in the United States influencing movements perhaps within media and entertainment in India?
Well, I mean, this is the age of globalization. What happens somewhere affects some other place as well. The recent Me Too movement is a big example of that. Ever since there was a lot of dialogue about it, you can sense the expectation surrounding some of the women, some of the actresses here who've not been. Who ostensibly have not been through such great experiences, to speak aloud. I think after 10 years, I think Tanushree yesterday or the day before has sort of opened up about a horrible experience she had in Bollywood on the sets of a film. And this was 10 years earlier she had spoken up about it, but nothing had come of it. Her voice had been suppressed. But now again, now she's being taken far more seriously, and I can only imagine that part of it has to do with the pressure coming from people who are exposed, who consume material surrounding the Me Too movement. So yes, I would believe that what happens there definitely on some way or the other affects here, and of course a lot of the Hollywood films get released here and our people watch them here. So we sort of take, some of our own filmmakers, some of them at least, take after those films and look to replicate that sort of portrayal here. So even if it's not a pretty direct connection from one industry to another, I would imagine that in all these ways, on some level, there has to be a connection.
And back to the audience in the room. Any questions or comments for our panel? All right. We received another, well, if my colleague might come forward, we have another question, I think, from WhatsApp, which, yes, here at U.S. Consulate General, we are very digitally connected. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Oh, shoot. Did yeah. Yeah. Okay. Stand by. So,
Although, what do you think? I should ask you your opinion of it, because I imagine that question was addressed at you. What do you suppose that America can?
I do not know about US specifically. I remember exhibiting in the India Art Fair pictures from my transgender story. And at the cost of generalizing, I had a lot of Indian audience coming up and asking me questions like, are you a trans woman? Is that why you're very passionate about this issue? I had people asking, hey, do you think they have a mental problem and can it be solved? And those kind of questions about 5 years back. But the audience from the rest of the world and their reaction was very different, because obviously the LGBTQI movement elsewhere has gone far ahead. And what has really helped the community on Facebook, Instagram, and other places, they've found the support system from the rest of the world out there. So I was in this cross-dressing festival where there were these men, straight men, who dress up as women in this festival. 5 years back, they would meet in some random place, hidden from everywhere, and they didn't know if it was the right thing to do. They didn't know there's something called cross-dressing that exists, so they would constantly wonder if they're doing the right thing, if they have mental problems. But the support system elsewhere in the world through Facebook communities and groups has helped them find that space. So surely, I think, especially the LGBTQI movement has gone forward thanks to the influence of the rest of the world.
thank you. All right. I'm going to ask you to read this question because my pronunciation is not going to help it.
Okay. Hari Hara Sudan from Tandiyarpet wants to ask, What is the take of both the panelists on films like Irittu Arayil Murattu Kuttu and such other films, say for example Chandramukhi, wherein denigrating comments about important men occur? Right, okay. And then there's a second question. Do you see LGBT representation coming through in Tamil cinema as stories centered around those characters? About Irittu Arayil Murattu Kuttu, I have to share a fascinating experience. I was in the theater and I couldn't quite understand what people found particularly funny about any insinuation about intercourse. The moment there was some insinuation that one person was looking to probably have intercourse with another person, the audience burst out laughing, predominantly college-going youngsters. There was nothing funny about it. It's just a consensual relationship between two adults. So what that tells me is these people are so starved for of information around it. They're so starved for having. I mean, it's not normal for them. And because they find it almost embarrassing to talk about it, or anything sexual becomes funny, and because that's how you deal with embarrassment, right? You laugh it off. So the moment you see it on screen and you're surrounded by so many people. I mean, we live in a culture where even in schools, many schools, they don't yet speak about it with the openness that they should. So I think the lesser spoken about a film like Irittu Arayil Murattu Kuttu, which just looks to capitalize on the awkwardness surrounding sexual conversations under the garb of humor. I think the less spoken about it, the better. I wonder what you would make of it.
So, I haven't seen the movie. I chose not to after watching the trailer. But I loved Yashika and Big Boss. That's another story. So I don't know. Yeah, the less spoken about better. But I on my other career involves me working with colleges, and I remember I was in this college in Rajasthan where I was in the canteen, and there were a lot of people staring at me like I've done something terribly wrong. So at some point I got up and asked, "What?" I said, "Ma'am, you're in the boys' canteen." Right? So that's still there in the rural parts where really you don't even see the other gender. Right? And that's obviously why movies like these are successful. But clearly they can't be healthy. Yeah.
And as for the second question about LGBT portrayal, when 377 was knocked out, naturally some of us publications, we tried to reach out to a lot of celebrities to get their views on the matter. What did they think about this? Were they particularly grateful for the judgment? Very fascinatingly, almost no actor would go on record speaking about it. And we wondered for a while why. We reached out to a lot of directors out there, a lot of popular names. We reached out to a lot of popular actors, all these names that you're familiar with, and none of them would have a thing or two to speak about it. They would either talk about it and want to be off the record about it, or not even share their opinions on the matter, refuse to speak about it. Now, I think this goes back to what you were saying. The moment you start covering transgender, sort of, bring them to light, people wondered if you were one yourself, if that was why you were doing it. I suspect it's part of, it's sort of the same fear surrounding these filmmakers and actors. The moment they come out there speaking for a community, I think there's fear that they may be thought to belong to that community on some level. I mean, you can only see all these messages about people like Karan Johar and all these people online. The moment 377 is knocked out, you can see all those snide comments made about their sexuality. So I think the most important step here is to normalize it. Just those people are normal too. I mean, you're normal. Their orientation is as normal as yours is. So with understanding about it, then we can. I mean, first, once that understanding percolates down to the lowest levels, then I would imagine that representation in films would be a no-brainer.
And we still have a lot of actresses saying, "But I'm not a feminist," and that really worries me, because I think the understanding of feminism and what gender equity means is so broad, which is obviously why we're not having enough conversations.
Well, I'll go on the record by saying that the United States does welcome the decision by India's Supreme Court on Section 377. And we believe that no one should face violence, discrimination, or prosecution based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, or sex characteristics. So I'm sorry you were not able to solicit an on-the-record comment from some of the actors, but I'm going to put that out there for the record. At this juncture, I would like to thank our panelists for their excellent discussion. And truly your remarkable and inspiring work as a photojournalist, as well as a film critic who's bringing awareness through your critiques. So thank you for that. And at this point, I would like to present you with, I think we call it a vote of thanks here. And thank you for the online audience for your questions, as well as I drew from a lot of inspiration from several of your essays here from the writers who are in the room, so thank you. At this point, we will transition to an award ceremony, and if you allow us a moment, we will do a stage, we'll redesign our stage. we are going to recognize our student essayists. 7 individuals have been selected as recipients of trophies and gifts from the New Indian Express. But we also will take a moment to recognize all participants, especially those present here, and at the conclusion take a photo with all of the student participants. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome to the stage the U.S. Consul General Robert Burgess and resident editor for the New Indian Express, Indaril Das. And if, before we announce names, if either of you would like to say a few words to our students.
Good morning, and welcome to the American Center here. I would just like to say a big word of thanks to the New Indian Express for working with us on this essay contest, sponsoring it, and making sure that we had a wide reach and scope so that we got essays and participation from across the region. I was overwhelmed by the number of responses, and I've been able to read quite a few of the submitted essays. I wasn't part of the judging, and I'm glad I wasn't, because it would have been hard to rank them. Just really the clarity of thought, the perspective, and the fresh ideas. So congratulations from me to all of the participants for taking the time to craft a meaningful and thoughtful essay on really an important, really important topic, a topic for all of us and our societies in gender and gender identity. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. And I also must take this opportunity to thank the U.S. Consul General for giving us a platform for such a collaborative stuff we had done. And also, I'd like to thank the participants, because without the participants, this entire exercise wouldn't have been possible. So thanks to all the participants who had written the essays. And when it comes to gender equality, I must say we at the New Indian Express, we don't just preach, we practice also. So in our newsroom, if you come and visit our newsrooms, you'll find more, women than men. So we have more gender equality, we practice that in our office. So I must also congratulate all the winners, and of course, and not the winners too, because without them participating, we wouldn't have had the 7 winners who will be announcing soon. Thank you so much.
All right, drum roll please. Sujatha will do the honors and announce the names, and if your name is called, please proceed to the stage to receive your trophy, as well as a gift from the New Indian Express, and you'll be taking a professional photo with our two representatives here.
Good morning. Now we start with the consolation prize. The first consolation prize goes to Varsha Vijay Menon. Varsha Vijay Menon is a final year law student at the Kerala Law Academy in Thiruvananthapuram. Her father Vijay Menon is into business, while her mother Hemalata is a homemaker. Her uncle Srikumar Balakrishnan is with Kaveri News in Chennai, and he motivated Varsha to participate in the contest. Varsha wants to specialize in intellectual property rights. Varsha. The second consolation prize goes to Ruth John. Ruth John is a second-year English literature student at the PSG College of Arts and Science in Coimbatore. Her father, Mr. Subramaniam, is an assistant professor of visual communications at the Hindustan College, Coimbatore. Mother, Bhuvaneshwari, is a homemaker. Ruth aims to enter the Indian Foreign Service. Ruth. Third consolation prize goes to Mariam Barak. Mariam Barak is a PG Diploma in Journalism student at the Asian College of Journalism in Chennai. A native of Afghanistan, Mariam is in Chennai on a SARC scholarship. She is specializing in radio journalism. She wants to experience different countries and cultures and learn more about journalism. After gaining experience as a professional journalist working for an international organization, Mariam hopes to start her own media outlet in the near future. Thanks, Mariam. Now we come to the first three prizes. Third prize goes to Shivangi K. Sundaram. Shivangi is a second-year commerce honors student from MOP Vaishnav College for Women in Chennai. Her father, Mr. Sundaram, is a financial consultant, while her mother, Chitra Sundaram, is a literature teacher. Shivangi's aim is to specialize in chartered accountancy. Second prize goes to V. Bhuvanashri. Bhuvanashri is a second-year BA English Literature student at the Guru Nanak College in Chennai. She is currently attending an education tour, and so her mother, Sri Devi, will collect the prize on her behalf. Bhuvanashri's father, Mr. Narayanan, works in the marketing section at LG Polymer, and mother is a part-time English teacher. Bhuvanashri wants to specialize in writing. And the first prize winner is Amrita Jeremiah. Amrita Jeremiah is a second-year BA English Literature student at the Madras Christian College in Chennai. Her father, Dr. Balamurugan, is the chief surgeon at Stanley Government Hospital. Her mother, Premalata Gandhi, is an ENT surgeon. Her younger sister is studying in class 10. Amrita aims to specialize in luxury management and intern in Milan, Italy. Amrita, please stay, and I would request all the all the 6 to please go on stage for a group photo. Yeah, please. Yeah, please. Yeah, with your trophies, you can go with your trophies. Yeah, please. And after this group photo is taken, we would require all the participants to please go on stage, so you can probably start coming here. All the participants of the essay contest. Bring big round of applause, please. I request the participants to please start walking to the stage quickly. Yeah, please. Please start walking up. Please start walking up.
Tall at the back, shorter in the front, so that everybody gets covered.
Okay, maybe we can have another batch. Okay, please just go ahead.
Fantastic that you're all here.
Yeah, you get me happy.
If any others want to take the
But that's something.
Any more participants in the crowd? Please don't feel shy.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Your questions, and those of you who would like to watch this again can visit our Facebook page and see the video available on our Facebook page for the U.S. Consulate General, Chennai. On that note, thank you again to our panelists, our partner, the New Indian Express. We look forward to seeing some of these essays in print in the New Indian Express coming in the days ahead. And I invite all of you here to join us in the foyer for some refreshments and beverages. Thank you. You are also welcome to come to the stage to take a photo.